President Trump on his way to a second high-stakes summit with North Korean leader Kim Jong Un. The pair are set to meet later this week in Vietnam. President Trump looking to continue progress made during the first sit-down and is optimistic North Korea will eventually give up its nukes.
I think we can have a very good summit. I think we'll have a very tremendous summit. We want denuclearization, and I think you'll have a country that will set a lot of records for speed in terms of an economy.
Meanwhile, the mainstream media is already trashing Trump and throwing cold water on any positive outcome from the talks.
Is this visit, just for lack of a better word, a romantic visit?
Did the president say that he loved Kim Jong Un again this weekend?
They have this, what,
love and kisses? Did he? I don't know. Did they send each other?
It's so disturbing and dangerous.
A Valentine's card?
My worry, George, is that this negotiation, this summit, may be a dud.
You're saying the president's going to get played?
I think the president's just looking for good press. I mean, let's just be frank. He felt like he got a good press after the last one, and he figures another photo op might do that.
Greg, here's how you know how biased the mainstream media is. When he was tough on Kim, then he was going to create a nuclear holocaust. And now when he's engaging with Kim, it's a romance.
Yes. And it's interesting how this criticism is bordering on homophobia. It's the same thing they did with Trump and Putin. Remember, they had them making out. It's like only on the left can you get away with these kinds of slights that they think is somehow humorous. If any of us had done something like that with, say, a liberal like President Obama, we would be...
Who was actually exchanging letters with the Ayatollah and giving them cash.
So here's the thing. You got to address the human rights abuses. You can't just ignore that. But it is possible to pursue the external threats, which are nuclear weapons, separating that from the internal injustices within a country, because that takes that's a longer pace. There are 70-some-odd countries that criminalize homosexuality. We still deal with them. So you can deal with these things separately: the external threat, the internal injustice. But if you conflate them, which is what CNN is doing, putting them together, you will never solve an external threat, because you're going to be too busy arguing over what internally is going on in their country. Therefore, you will never, ever be able to, say, reduce the nuclear threat of North Korea, and then every day it'll be January 13th, 2018 in Hawaii with the ballistic missile threat. Can I just go all Jordan Peterson on for a minute?
Whatever that means.
This whole North Korea gambit is audacious and, to most people, absurd. But to get to someplace realistic and practical, you have to start with a fantasy. For example, to get to astronomy, you had to start with astrology. That's what Jordan Peterson's saying. And I do think it needed an apolitical CEO to come up with something so absurd and a simple philosophy of, let's see what happens. Because no one else was going to do this. And so we've all moved on from the absurd notion of engaging North Korea, because we're actually seeing progress. So what you're seeing is the beginning of a fantasy to something real. And to Juan, the left should embrace this, because you can throw it back at us and go, well, what about free health care? What about the new Green Deal? Those are fantasies that start audaciously and then move to something practical. So in a weird way, Donald Trump is the guy you go to about Green Deals and free health care.
Well, I'm all for it. I'm all for Trump embracing the Green New Deal. But
you see my point, though?
I see your
point. You started something crazy, and you moved to something good.
Dude, I listen to you. I really do. I really do. No, I take him seriously.
Of all the people Juan says do here.
But I must say, it did sound like you were saying, what's wrong with audacious? I'm sure the people who are Green New Dealers are listening and saying, Greg Gutfeld? Unbelievable.
No, that's my point is that when you have somebody like Trump, you don't know what to expect. This is just one of those things. And to just sit there and keep making jokes like Morning Bozo, it doesn't
But
work.
on the other hand, you do have people, it's not, you guys, you and Jesse say it's the media, but I don't think Dan Coates is the media. Dan Coates is the national security.
Well, he's not saying anything cynical and sarcastic.
No, what
he's
he
just
said
saying
was,
that, yes, they've stopped with the rockets and the nuclear testing, but we haven't seen any progress towards denuclearization, and that's something that they want to accomplish in Vietnam.
But they had pledged to stop the nuclear testing before the first meeting.
I think they're clear-eyed about what to expect from the North Koreans, aren't they? They know this is not a regime that always tells the truth.
The funniest part of that montage for me is that he would be doing this because he's looking for good press. Good press from who? These people have already decided that he's going to be a failure. I think he should be careful. I think Trump sometimes talks a little bit too much. I think he comes
You
out.
do?
I do. I think he's very optimistic. He wants to come out, and he is the deal maker. He thinks of himself like that. He thinks of himself as someone who's going to get stuff done that other presidents may not have been able to accomplish. In some cases, that's true. But I think when he says these really bold things like, you know, Chairman Kim will make a wise decision, you don't know if he's going to make a wise decision. Don't put that stuff out there. That's like Mexico's going to pay for the wall. Hold back a little bit. It's very easy to just say, look, I'm going in there with the best of intentions. I hope for denuclearization. It's going to be good for their economy. I hope they take my side on this. I don't know what's going to happen. Let's hope for the best and see how it goes. When you make those statements, it makes you feel then obligated to cave a little bit to get a deal done, because it doesn't do him any justice. So I would just say be a little more cautious about it. Know who you're dealing with. Know that this is a dictator that's not always reliable, that does hide missile sites. It's not like you're dealing with an ally here. You're not. And just hold some of that back. And obviously, no matter what he does, the media is going to rail against him. If he didn't go, he would be someone who didn't care about diplomacy. So he can't win with them regardless. That's a big joke.
You know,
but just for the people who support him, hold it back a little bit.
Jesse, I have to go out of character here.
Oh, boy.
You're going to tell the truth?
This Trump bashing at this table has to stop. I just can't believe it.
Katie,
I can't
change
believe
that.
Look, I don't think that when he says he will make this decision about economic prosperity that he's expecting it. He's giving Kim Jong Un a choice. He's saying this is the only choice for you. We're putting this on the table. We are not coming in militarily right now, even though I put that option on the table before. But this is really the choice that you should make. And he knows exactly who he's dealing with. He knows he's dealing with a dictator who loves movies, who loves Western culture, who loves Western sports. And he's trying to incentivize him to say, look, you can be a Western superpower. You can engage in all of these new cultural things for your country without having regime change. We're not talking about taking you out, man. We're just saying you can stay as long as you decide to embrace these cultural norms, clean it up a little bit, stop threatening us, and then we can move forward. But eventually, the White House is going to get impatient. The president has said that he's not in a hurry, he's not on a timeline, but eventually they're going to want something in return other than just stopping the missile testing. And that is something that the second summit will hopefully provide. And him talking to him and saying, look, we've had this agreement. You've exchanged no missile testing, but now it's time to talk about your nuclear program. And the intelligence community does say that you are still building sites, you're not getting rid of them, and it's about time that you stop doing those things. Because we're doing this in good faith, and you seem not to be doing it in return.
I think you have to be skeptical, of course, about this. It would be crazy if you weren't skeptical. But again, people were skeptical about the moonshot, right? And when people talk about going to Mars, that's crazy. But people think about this. You think about these things. Ending the Korean War. We weren't talking about ending the Korean War 2 years ago. That's going to happen. The Korean War is going to end, and and that has a lot to do with this insane process. This is a foreign policy moonshot. It's going to take time. I think the Korean War could take decades, but we know it's going that way.
So I was skeptical about George Clooney's tequila.
Yeah.
It turns out it's pretty good tequila.
There you go. See, we can all change our minds.
We can. But I must say, what are we putting on the table is what you hear from people in Washington. They say, oh, so we're going to end the Korean War? For what? We're going to give you a diplomatic
what do you need?
station
well,
in North
I'll tell you what we're not doing.
Hold on. Okay. This is what they're talking about. The possibility that we recognize North Korea as a nuclear state. Why would we do that? I mean, you have Gina Haspel at CIA. You have Dan Coates saying these guys have no intention to abandon their nuclear ambition.
I'll tell you what we're not going to do.
What?
We're not going to send them pallets and pallets of cash
and gold
in the dead of night.
Right. We didn't do it.
No,
we did it with Iran.
Remember that deal?
Oh,
All right.